Hey everybody, this is Peyton with Gathering Hope. I'm one of the co-founders, and today I have Betsy Beaman with me. I have known Betsy for, I think, almost a year now, maybe a little bit more. She's going to share her story. She's going to introduce us to her son, Lane, and I'm going to have you introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about you, and then after that, introduce us to Lane.
Hi, everybody. My name is Betsy Beaman. Locally, I live here in Fort Worth. I have just been really involved with Gathering Hope, I feel like, for the last 2 years. I think it's two. I think I've known you for two.
No one has any concept of time right now, right? Like, so it's not entirely my fault.
What day is today? I'm not sure I know.
It's Blur's Day. I
don't know. So yes, this topic of miscarry and celebration of a life that I've lost is really important to my heart. Lane, his story, it's really unique and interesting. And I think that's like the first thing I want to say is that everyone's stories are so unique and interesting. So I'm so grateful for this platform to share him and his name and our journey. I would say I was not like a huge component or fan of like, let's have a baby right away.
Okay.
I was really digging marriage. I lived in New York for about 5 years. Right after college, was like, what am I doing here? I'm going to go move to New York, and was able to be really selfish by myself, had such a great time. And so when I came back and met my amazing husband, I just really loved being around him. And so I didn't feel this pressure to want to get pregnant right away. But when that bug, and I would say a little bit of the Lord came in and said, like, let's have a baby, it was sort of this very odd calming presence for me. And I was like, okay, let's see what this looks like. Let's have a baby. And you know, I'm not going to say, unfortunately, I'm actually really thankful that I know this about myself, but I struggle a little bit with anxiety. And so the thought process of getting pregnant and, you know, all the bad that comes was in the forefront of my mind just a little bit, but just kind of tried to trust in the Lord and say, it's going to be okay.
So you had that before, like before you got pregnant, you had,
yeah.
Okay. That's interesting.
Yeah, it's, you know, the other fun thing I'd love to share with people is like, it's okay. Anxiety is totally okay. And
yes.
I'm grateful that I've had people in my life to talk through things. And I was grateful for that too. And so I struggled with the anxiety just a little bit. And then we got pregnant, and it was sort of this like very comforting peace that washed over me a little bit when it happened. Mm-hmm. Of course, we were excited and, you know, all of the things. And so my whole process and my mindset was like, hear the heartbeat and then you'll be okay. And so I struggled with anxiety a little bit, but I was like, we'll hear the heartbeat and we'll be okay. And so went in for the 8-week, you know, very like traditional appointment, and we heard the heartbeat, and it was like, oh my gosh. And it was in that moment, sort of later on in the same room where I heard the best news of my life, I heard the worst news of my life. And so in the moment where I heard the best news of my life, things just sort of like took away. It was just sort of like, yeah, okay, we're going to do this.
Yes.
And I, you know, started telling people, even though you technically weren't supposed to, but we just got such great news that I just felt this peace about it. Yeah. And so we ended up getting the genetic testing done, and selfishly, because someone told me you could find out early if it was a boy or a girl, not knowing, God was like, nope, you're going to need this for something else a lot harder down the road. And then got to 12 weeks and was just even more excited. Went in a week late, so at 13 weeks, and just was like ready to, you know, take on the world. And we didn't hear about my test results yet, so I was like, okay. We're gonna find out, and this is gonna be the biggest day ever. We're gonna find out boy or girl and start this journey even more. And went into the room, you know, the dreaded room. I feel like some people are like, I'm having a premonition right now, so it's okay. But went into the room, nurse couldn't find the heartbeat, but it was on the Doppler, right? So she was like, don't worry, we'll go in and we'll go into the big room and get a sonogram. And so it was kind of like moving to the room. I was like, okay, everything's going to be okay. And luckily my husband was there and he was like, it's okay. And the nurses were there and everyone was just so kind.
Were you
And
starting
then,
to panic at that point or no?
I think I was, but it was this piece of people around me saying, don't worry, this is
Right.
normal. It's okay. Which was good and bad. I was like, okay. And now I'm like, ugh, someone should have said, hey, no. But it was what I could handle at the time. And then we went into the room and that was the blur. It's funny. I call it many different things. Unfortunately, sometimes I curse, I won't hear, but I call it the blur effing hour, if you will, because
It's a problem we share, you and I.
Yes. It builds character. That's what I'm gonna say. But the blur came up on the screen, and you knew immediately. I mean, it was like that right there, and I let out this like scream, and you could tell, and you just knew, and then within that 30-minute period, we found out we lost the baby. We found out that it was a male, it was a boy, and then we found out he had trisomy 23. So it was just like boom, boom, boom. And we were sort of just left in this room to just figure things out, right? And to figure out where we go from here. And then what the next steps were, and what here's what has to happen for your safety. And so,
right.
And we took separate cars. My husband and I took separate cars, and I know. I think I even remember that car ride more than anything else.
Yeah.
Because it was this moment of being truly alone, which I'm going to be honest with you. I love being around other people. I get my energy from other people. I love lifting people up. And so I'm hanging out in my Ford Fusion in the parking lot, just at a loss. And honestly, I was at a loss because I never knew anyone who struggled with a miscarry. I mean, that sounds so, even in my head right now, I'm like, yeah, you probably did. No one, not a single person.
Yeah.
And so this hurt and this loneliness, it was literally like Tom Hanks in Castaway. I'm Tom Hanks, and I don't even have Wilson or that's right. I don't have Wilson. I have me, and that's it.
Yeah.
And I would say, the steps and the actions that I took leading up to it took a good year to really understand what happened, and depression, all the things that come with it, depression, sadness, trying to have another baby, all of that was really unique. And I'm happy to say, 3 years into this journey, that it's still challenging, but celebrating his life and saying his name as often as I can is probably one of my favorite things that I do. And I try and make it a priority as much as I can to honor him and say his name, because that's really important to me.
I want to backtrack a little bit to where you said something about you're not supposed to tell. We found out at 8, we're at 8 weeks, or whenever as soon as you find out you're pregnant, you start telling people. And then you said in a few sentences after that, even though you're not supposed to tell people before a certain amount of time. Talk to me a little bit about why do you think that we as a community, as a country, just as people, why are we not supposed to say we're pregnant before a certain amount of time? Why do you think that is? This isn't one of the questions I wrote down and sent to you.
You're good. I think before this, it was, to be honest, I think before this, it was because something could possibly happen, where I feel empowered and where I feel I want to share with women, period, is that a life is a life, and to celebrate it whenever you want to is what's so key to me, and talking about it and really normalizing this scary zone, right? Normalizing this 12 weeks of I'm pregnant, I can't really tell anybody, normalizing it that you need to tell people, because if if you end up having a beautiful pregnancy and a beautiful child come out of that, wonderful. But
Right.
if something does happen, and whether that's something within you personally, right, like you gestational diabetes happened, or something happens with you, previa placenta, all those other things that are very scary,
Right.
build your group of community right away, because that is what's key. That is the power in us being females,
Right.
us carrying life, is that there's a support system behind you, and they will be there for you, good, bad, ugly, scary, awful, right?
Yeah.
Mean. I was mean. I was really mean when the miscarry happened. I cut out people who had children that have been so wonderful to me, and I shouldn't have done that. And when you build up your community at the beginning, when you feel almost excitement and joy right at the beginning, you share that with your loved ones, that's going to come back, good or bad, whatever happens,
Right.
it's going to come back to you, and it's going to help you feel that sense of peace and comfort through this journey, because getting pregnant, staying pregnant, having a child, it is a hard journey, and you need all of the love and support and encouragement that you can get to stay, okay, and to
Right.
feel excited about it.
I could not agree with you more. I love that you mentioned community, like both in celebrating and in grieving. So let me ask you this. So we have known each other for about 2 years. Before you even found out about Gathering Hope and the community here, what did community look like for you before that? Like who were your people? How did you get through it before you found?
It's so funny. I think Gathering Hope saved me a little bit to talk about it. I felt shame in still talking about it, even like 3 months after it happened, because it was kind of like, it's okay, it'll the phrases that would always come to mind were like, don't worry, you're young, you can get pregnant again, or everything's going to be okay and God has a plan, and those are truths, and you need to understand and know that those are truths. But I shut myself out from most people. If they had a child, I didn't want to be around them. I pretty depressed, was not really one of my joys in life. And I mean, I love getting dressed up. I love trying random I'm wearing a headband. I mean,
I wear headbands because of you.
Like, I'm wearing a headband. And I love that. I just enjoy doing that. And I didn't want to do any of that. I didn't want to get out of bed. And I'm going to be honest with you, I didn't really know what depression was. And then someone was like, hey girl, you depressed. And so I was like, oh, really? Okay. So I shut myself out a lot.
Yeah.
And then I think once I had, I sought comfort in women who weren't currently pregnant yet, but like were ready to just like sit and drink a glass of wine with me. I think I really unlocked who I was as a grieving mom when I started to research groups, right? And that's where I started first. I was like, mom who've struggled in miscarriages. Like that's kind of where I started to try and find my newfound community, I would say.
Okay. Tell me, what do you think has been the most surprising part of your grief journey of living without Lane?
So I think it's twofolded. One, loss is just, it's this piece of your heart that never goes away, right? There will be days where I'm like, everything's great and I'm loving life and I feel so at peace at everything that's happened. And then there'll be days where like I saw a gender reveal and it was a boy, and it broke me. And how unique that is, and how I've never experienced that before, that sense of grief, it's sort of like a sweater that you can't rid of. You loved it when you bought it, right?
Yeah.
Who thought sequins and shoulder pads would go out of style? I'm not getting rid of it. I love it. It brings this comfort to me.
Yeah.
But at the same time, when you put it on again, you're like, what are you doing? The shoulder pads and sequins. So it's this grief is sort of like that sweater that you never wear anymore, but you can't throw away. It's in your life constantly, and you'd be doing really well, and then it could come in and just like hit you in the face a little bit. So
Yeah.
I was surprised about grief. And I've experienced grief a lot in my life. Like this type of grief was something that really is still surprising to me. And, you know, to be honest, the other one is just how much shame women feel and how alone women feel struggling with a miscarriage or losing a child. I still feel it. I still get people who, when I share about Lane, or I have a tattoo with his initial on my arm, where they're like, where, you know, and I say his name and that we lost a child, that they'll tell me that they've lost one and they've never told anybody, or that I'm honoring him this day, or, you know, I post something about the Day of Light, the International Day of Light, and they're like, this is beautiful. I didn't even know it existed. So I'm surprised that and annoyed that there aren't not only just normalized conversations about it, but women who are experiencing pain and suffering feel like they can't share it because of what they think other people will say.
Right.
I'm a huge proponent of always celebrating and sharing, because that's how you start your journey, and that's how you stay on a journey of healing. Like I believe that I'm on a constant marathon run in grief. I'm never like at the end of it, like hanging out with a water and a Powerade and like, yeah, I did this. It's always a constant journey. But sometimes if you're not careful and you don't continue this journey and you don't continue healing and talking about your grief, you're on the sidelines. And then all of a sudden you're a month into being depressed again and you don't know what's going on or what happened. And so just continuing to normalize this conversation that it is okay, and that if you are sad, it is okay, and you are not alone. Being sad is power to me, and something that I want to continue to not be surprised by anymore, right? And just share as much as I can.
Yeah. You and I were talking before we started recording, like it's 2020. Like, how is there still shame associated with this kind of loss? And again, not a question I wrote down for you, but like, where do you see, I just value your insight and your passion for this topic, but like, where do you see like us overcoming that? Like, what do we need to do in order to enable people to not have to have a tattoo on their wrist to be like, I can talk about this and you can talk about this? So like, what do you see going forward? Like, what could we be doing?
You know, I think it's like speaking up, right? It's conversations like this. I'm a table leader for this year's Gathering Hope event. And one of the things that I sort of just threw out there was like, I get it. I can talk to a lot of people. My mom used to always say you would talk to a board, even if they didn't talk back to you. And so sometimes people who aren't as like lively and talkative as me don't feel like they can do that. And I think I want to continue to speak out and say, call me, let's talk. Let me share your story. Let's write a letter. Let's write a Facebook post. Let's share in a group that we trust and that we feel safe. Let's share that. Let me help you do that. Let me not necessarily empower you, but let me show you how it's okay. Yeah. And I think that's the biggest thing, is that we just have to normalize it. And I hate saying that, because it's like, oh, Betsy, you want to normalize miscarrying and infant loss? I'm kind of like, yeah, I do, because it's happening. It's happening every day. It could be happening right now. And imagine it happening and then not being able to talk about it. Right. And mental health is so important to me. Normalizing that it's okay to have depression, that it's okay to have anxiety. and to talk about it. I think, you know, it's really simplistic. I could get maybe a little bit more linear about what I think we could do, but I am charged every day, I think, to share in story and my story. Yeah. And I level myself up even a little bit more to ask people, and not, hey, why don't you have children? Because first of all, don't ask that. That's a horrible question. But instead, when we're having these conversations in our friend groups, our church groups, you know, our mom groups, whatever group you're in, where it is heavy female related, you bring up the topic of like, how's everybody doing? Like, how are you really doing? And you start to normalize if you feel sad, and talk about why. What is that? And then really listen. I think that's key. And that's, to me, not to bring it back to Gathering Hope, but to me, that's that first event, that first gathering I went to, I was terrified, which makes zero sense. I'm not scared to do anything. And I'm saying that meaning I moved to a different state I'd never visited before. Who's scared to go to an event full of women who've experienced the same thing as you?
Right.
Me. I was. I took a friend.
You are not alone in that, for sure. You're not alone in that. We have people tell us stories of how, like, they drove around the building several times before they even came in. And I know there are several women who did that and didn't even make it inside. And so you're not alone in that at all.
I took a friend, and I do lots of things by myself. I do hard things by myself all the time. Yes. And I took a friend. I could not be by myself. And what I found to be the most powerful thing is to sit with 7 other women and listen to them share exactly how I was feeling. Now the stories are all different, and they are powerful. And they are, gut-wrenching to me sometimes. But to sit and hear them say, I felt lonely, I'm a mom, and not be able to say that to someone, you know, that is what changed me. That is what has led me to be so passionate about it and so open about it, because any mother, any woman who's experienced this type of loss, you are a mother. Yeah. And just because they are here does not take away that you are a mother. And that is what's most important to me. And if I can share that with one person or, 150 people, I'm going to do that every single day. And I think that's what Gathering Hope is doing. And it's starting the conversation, and it's starting to let people feel comfortable about this, because it's you're not alone, and you are a mother. I'm fine now, but
I don't know that we have ever had a conversation, done one of these recordings before where someone hasn't, and it's usually me, shed a tear. Because why is that? Because there's so much love, and it has to have somewhere to go, right? Like, we can't just keep it in here. And so sometimes it comes out in tears, sometimes it comes out in words. But I mean, we all have so much love for our kids, and it just has to go somewhere. So don't apologize for tears. We tell people that all the time, don't we? Like, you don't need to apologize for that.
I cry often. I find it very cathartic, honestly. So if you want any encouragement, cry. It makes you feel better.
It does. It does. There's science about grief tears, how they are different than regular tears. And so I think that is like, grief sucks. Okay. But I do think, like, there's these little small gifts that, like, nope, these ones that I'm crying for my child that I miss so dearly, they hurt more because they matter. Like, they really, really matter. I want to ask you, where have you seen hope in your journey, and what has helped you to heal? Not that, like, we're ever fully healed until, like, we're in heaven, right? But what has helped you in that process?
And I'm going to say this twofolded. I think when you talk about healing, it's very personalized to you, right? So,
Right.
so the things that make me feel better might not always make someone else feel better.
Right.
So I want to encourage, first off, is find something that makes you feel better. What speaks to you? What truly, when you look in the mirror, you're like, ugh. Is it crying in the shower? I highly recommend it. Love it. Is it doing volunteer work in honor of your child, right? Something, whatever is your cup filler, if you will.
Yeah.
Mine's twofolded. I put together a letter, and it wasn't necessarily a letter to Lane. It was a letter, about him and about his life and our journey together as a mother and a son. And I read that a lot. I try and share it if possible, because it highlights and talks about his life. I think it was really funny. I love flowers. They're like my life. And when we experienced that loss, we just had an outpouring of people who love us, and we had flowers and food. And it was like the first 3 days, I was like, I love smelling these. I can wake up. And then it was a Friday where I looked at my husband and I was like, I don't want to be here. So like, we figure out what that is, but I do not want to be in this house. I don't want to be anywhere.
Yeah.
And some of it was like the anger creeping in a little bit, right? And the frustration, but I was like, I'm done. I don't want to be here. And we went to like a little getaway, and we were in a bookstore because we were going to be sitting by the pool, just like crying and, living our lives. And we went to this bookstore, and I was like, I'm going to go find something like a romance novel, something, just anything that will take me away from the pain I'm feeling. And I mean, we're in like a real general bookstore, not like a Barnes and Noble where there's like a grief section. We're just in the, I don't even know what it's called.
Yeah.
And like I walk in and go to the right because I think that's where I thought Endless Crap was. And right there is this book, and it's called Grieving the Child I Never Knew. And it was a devotional. So I'm like, a devotional and a book. But I saw it and was like, what's up, book? Why are you looking at me like that?
Wow.
I guess I'll grab you. And I loved that. It was, I don't utilize it at all right now. So like 3 years removed, I do it. But it was power. It was sort of asking me these questions. Like one of them, I remember one of them was like, write out his name. And I was like, what? No, you write out his name. And then I was like, I will write out his name.
Yeah.
And what that did for me, it was like something was lifted off, where I was like, okay. So I think that was really powerful for me. I loved that. Those were great tools for me. I would say talking to other women, that was hard for me to find at the beginning, because it was like, hey, you don't make like a Facebook call where like, anyone else struggled with a miscarriage or infant loss? Call me, right? It's not a sales pitch. But it's hard. Yeah, it's not, but it's very trying to formalize a relationship with a woman when we've experienced something like that. So finding something like Gathering Hope is huge, I think, because really it's just starting the conversation about, you're not on an island anymore. I wrote about it a couple months ago, but you never want to be a part of this club. You never do. I'm sorry. You just don't. Yeah. Nobody wants to be a part of this club. But when you are surrounded by members who welcome you, and they've never met you before. They don't know you at all. And they treat you as if they've known you for 30 years. And that club, this club of women, it has truly transformed me and has helped me stay on a path of grieving and a path of light at the end of the tunnel, while also not forgetting this life. Right. And I think that's really important.
That's a beautiful way of putting it. Thank you. So Gathering Hope is a month away, and
I'm excited.
I'm excited too. It's going to be so different, but I'm excited to see kind of what God does with this whole new format. So we have almost 300 women signed up to come. And just like when we do this in person, you sign up and you're like, man, I've been looking for something like this. I can't wait to meet other women like me. And then as it gets closer, like things start kind of creeping into your mind, like, oh, I was invited to this. I'll go do that. Or, you know, your nerves or just worries about like how you'll react or what you'll do or what it'll be like because you just don't know because you haven't been there. Like you said, you brought a friend and you're like, I just carry stuff for myself all the time. Having been there and actually having been a part of we did a kind of a practice run with our table leaders, having been a part of that on the virtual side. What would you tell a mom who was eager, she signed up, she's committed to come, but as that date gets closer, like her nerves are getting the best of her? What would you say to her?
The word I think that's coming to my mind immediately is safe, like safety. This evening and this group of women, they are your safe zone. They are your safe space. If you have not experienced that sense of safety, you'll experience it on October 3rd. You will.
Yeah.
And I think there's power in that. As we open up, being vulnerable is not easy. You know, we sit here and we're like, here's what happened to me, but it's not easy for everybody else.
Right.
And so, first of all, knowing that this is a safe space for you to be vulnerable is key. I felt that the moment I walked into the door. And then I think, so safety and and it's okay to be vulnerable. And that there are no strings. If you want to come in and just listen, you can listen. If you're feeling like you're not ready to share, but you want to, you know, say your child's name, then do it. If you want to talk, you know, for 45 minutes and cry, like, do it. It's okay. Anything that you may feel or that you may experience is okay. And we're all here. We're all here for you. We're all here to help you celebrate and to help you in a journey of grieving, because that's the most important thing is to grieve and to celebrate, and you can do those things at the same time. And I think that's what this event is. It's a celebration of these beautiful, beautiful lives that we lost, right? So one of my things that I'll say is, you know, think about an obituary. Like, you've seen them. Some people do like massive 1-pager obituaries, and you read them and there's this like beauty. You're like, I wish I would have known Barry. He sounds like a stand-up dude. And so you're like, why don't I have an obituary? Like, my child isn't here. My child, I lost Lane. I want an obituary for Lane. I want people to know who he was, and I want people to hear his name. That's this platform, this event, this evening is that. It's your opportunity to be around women who are here to listen and who are here to say, we love you. We are here for you. And maybe not also it's going to be okay, because sometimes it's not going to be okay, but that you are not alone in this. I think that's it. That's what this event is. And to just trust in it and know that there is safety, and there are people that are praying for you, and that there are so many other things that go on behind the scenes to ensure that this event is a safe space for you to celebrate the life you lost and grieve alongside other mothers.
Yeah, that's a beautiful way of putting it. I have learned, in fact, like I have this in my office, it says and instead of or. Like, I think you just put that so beautifully. And I'm not the first person to say, like, to grasp the word and in the midst of grief, but I think it's something so important that we can have like joy and sad, like joy and grief, they can come together, and grief and celebrating and remembering, like, and like we can do it all together. There's this beautiful tension that I think is kind of reserved for women like us, that we can just live in that space of attention and know like the woman next to me or the woman across the screen from me also knows what it's like to live in this, I don't know, I don't even know, have a good word for it, but like this space of like here and then there's heaven, you know, and until we get to heaven and are reunited with our children, like we just live in this space and we have each other to get through it. So
I feel like I'm reminded of, and I'm not like a Bible verse quoter, so it's probably not right. And someone's like, that's not it. But I think it might be a song too, where it's like, come to the altar. Yes, and anytime that I think about like what it means to come to the altar, like really laying it down it's very simple. It just means come to the Lord with everything, like lay it at his feet. And I think there's beauty and power in what this event is, because, you know, you're coming to it hoping to you may have an expectation or you don't even know what that is, but like, I just want you, you know, if you're in my room, I just want you to come with your story and share it with me, because the moment you do, not only have you shared it with someone, you know, here that's supporting you in a group of women who are experiencing the same thing, but you're sharing it with the Lord all over again. And whether you're asking for something or you're expressing an emotion of sadness, I mean, one of the things that we did in our last meeting when we shared our own stories is I started crying about people not remembering him and not remembering the day I lost him. And I was like, what's happening, Betsy? You were fine. This was 3 years ago. But it was coming to the table, coming to Gathering Hope, and really just being open to hear what God might be saying to me, or hear what other people are saying, that it could be, you're not alone, this is okay, but come to this event with open arms, and I promise you, you will get just virtually hugged and like spiritually hugged and mentally hugged and emotionally. All of those things will happen at the end.
Yeah, I love that. I want to ask, so we've all kind of been alone in our homes for quite a while now. And so I just want to ask a fun question. So what is one thing that like you have just been loving lately? Like, what has been the thing that has, and if the answer is wine and chocolate, I'm totally fine with that. But like, what has gotten you through this quarantine time? What's been your go-to?
It's not hard. I always try and get like over it a little bit too. One thing that has come out of this is to celebrate good and bad days. Okay. And to live in those feelings. I think for a while it was like, I just had a really bad day, and you're like, that's okay. Tomorrow's a new day. You'll be better. Let's work out, or I don't know, go for a walk, or what. I don't work out, but like something like that. Right. And I have just realized that if you had a bad day, like live in your bad day. Be cranky, be sad, go cry in your shower, have a glass of wine, have a glass or two of wine, and just live in that bad day, and then live in the good days too. Yeah. I think that's been something that's been really powerful for me. It's just like kind of acknowledging that this sucks. Yes. And if you had a really bad day, just have a bad day and let that day be bad. And then the next day, like try and live in a better day, right? Yeah. I think that's been helpful. Right before quarantine, we moved from this like 1950s house that had like 0 updates, and, you know, not like a crazy awesome like backyard or anything like that. We moved in December to, we have this beautiful view of a golf course, and we see the sunsets. And even though it's really, really hot, sitting on my patio and just like outside with my husband drinking a glass of wine or a hot tea, that's been nice, because we're very busy. We have a 2-year-old who doesn't stop talking and doesn't stop like trying to do dangerous things. Your
daughter doesn't stop talking? I can't imagine.
What? That's weird. But no, it's not. But like just to rest in this. I mean,
Yeah.
we're resting in a lot of really scary crap, right? There's a lot
Yeah.
of scary stuff going on in our world, but to utilize this as a rest and recharge, right? We can't go to restaurants all the time.
Yeah.
We don't get to go to fun parties. I love a fun themed party. Oh, I miss a themed party, but we don't get to do those things right now. So just resting in that has been great. And I'm not gonna lie, Champy's is always my favorite. I love champagne.
Love it.
Champagne is all because anytime you open it, you're celebrating a new thing.
Yeah.
So
and it could just be like
Thursday.
We're celebrating Tuesday or Thursday.
Right? I put a headband on. I'm gonna celebrate that later.
Yes. We got dressed today. Woo!
Pants on.
Yes. Yes.
Always a good thing.
Thank you so much for sharing your story and sharing Lane with us. If anybody wants to get in contact, like connect, can they find you in the Gathering Hope group? Are you in there?
Yes.
Can't remember.
Yes.
So we have just a couple different ways to connect with us. Is we have a Facebook group. You will be able to watch Gathering Hope online on October 3rd. Check out our website, gatheringhope.org, and find other resources. And I'm going to add the book that you mentioned to the list of resources. I don't think we have that book up there yet. So, okay.
Feel free, message me. I'm fine with that too. I mean, you might be in California and I'm here, but you can definitely message me on Facebook or Instagram. And I'd love to chat and just help you go through this journey.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Betsy.
You're welcome.
Bye.
Bye, guys.